Stop whatever you're doing. This one XRP fall changed my entire week. And wait, just because the ending kind of flips the entire sell the pump playbook on its head. Now, picture me yesterday morning, right? Coffee in one hand, phone in the other, scrolling through endless crypto doom scroller headlines. Bitcoin wobbled, memes were melting, and somewhere between a cat video and a sponsored ad for socks that think a post from an account called Traveler slapped me wide awake. Do nothing with your XRP until 2030. Nothing. Zero transaction. Total zen. Now, I've heard every flavor of Diamond Hands sermon over the past decade, but this one kept buzzing in my skull like an elevated tune that I just couldn't shake. Why 2030? Why not cash out at the next parabolic spike, buy a yacht and, well, name it liquidity? So that single tweet kind of became the spark for today's little adventure, right? I decided to test how hard it is to sit on a bag of tokens while the market throws fireworks at you. So grab your favorite beverage of choice, settle in, and let's kind of wander through Traveler time, price targets that no one agrees on, and the uncomfortable art of doing absolutely nothing. Okay, real talk first. Hanging onto any crypto for 5 minutes, it kind of feels like standing on a trampoline during an earthquake. 5 years? Well, that's kind of like holding a lit firework and hoping that it doesn't become a shooting star instead of a, finger torch. Or maybe actually hoping that it does become a shooting star rather than just burning your hand. Now, Traveler's post wasn't just empty hype. He doubled down hours later, right? Selling it, or at least spelling it out, that no selling, no trimming, no cheeky DCA flips. Now, if XRP skyrockets to new highs next month, you can clap, you can smile, and refuse to hit the sell button. Now, the internet promptly erupted here, right? Bulls kind of pasted rocket emojis. Bears asked if Traveler had confused XRP with a retirement bond. And yours truly stared crunching, or they started crunching numbers on the kitchen counter. So here is kind of what the math whispered then, right? Let's say you you're the proud owner of 10,000 XRP. Now, at the moment that I record this video, one token kind of shakes hands at around $3, right? So give or take, the kind of nightly volatility kind of wiggle, of course. Now that's kind of roughly $30,000. That's already a pretty tidy chunk of change. Now, fast forward to 2030 and imagine the conversation around, at least conservative, and the conversation around the conservative scenario from a hearty kind of, folks over at Changelly, right? They first quarter open of $19.21, a year-end sprint topping out at $32.60. So you can do the basic math here and you can start, or at least you'll be staring at, $326,000. That's a house down payment, a year's worth of college, or an industrial size espresso machine if you're extremely caffeinated like myself. But wait, there's more. Now, as the infomercials love to tease, of course, Telegaon adds up the kind of ante here, or, I guess ups it, in fact, with a $36.86 floor and a $48.03 ceiling. So the same 10,000 tokens suddenly worth $480,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a heroic act of inertia. Remember that word, right? Because we're going to circle back in a bit. Now, if those projections sound like random darts being tossed at a price chart, you're not alone, right? You've got Analyst 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗍, that's BABA, another colorful figure in the XRP circus who pins short-term volatility, or reality as he would deem it, at $5 to $7. The midterm $10 to $20, and the long-term moonshot somewhere beyond $100 if the token slots neatly into the global liquidity puzzle. So critics call it just hopium, fans call it Tuesday. Now, here is where things got a little bit weird for me. Normally, I'd open up Kraken Pro, the affiliate link, by the way, is in the description that supports the channel, by the way, and I kind of fiddle with a limit order faster than you can say slippage. Now, the stubborn little voice inside said, prove traveler wrong. So, or right, I guess. Now, either way, document the journey. So instead of trading, I did something radical. I opened my wallet, I admired the digits, and I closed the app. Revolutionary, I know. So you might be wondering, why would anybody deliberately ignore the market's siren song for 5 years? And let me explain with a totally non-crypto story, right? My grandmother kept a tin of fancy British biscuits on top of her fridge, labeled "Do not open until Christmas." Now, every July, I'd climb on a stool, I'd shake the tin and imagine chocolate treasures rattling inside. But the rule stood, right? And December cookies tasted like victory multiplied by patience. That's Traveler's argument in snack form then, right? The cookie price, sorry, but token price. You can only really bake fully if you actually resist sneaking bites. Now, of course, not everyone agrees here. Analyst eGrag Crypto waves a rather different flag. Skim profits gradually, like meticulous, gardener trimming his roses, for example. Take a little off when the chart goes bonkers. Keep enough roots in the soil that you'll ride future rallies without sleepless nights. Sensible? Absolutely. Romantic? Less so. There's something cinematic, I guess, about the all-in, leave it alone mentality, the come back later stance to true hodlers. But here's the twist. I spent last night teasing both philosophies, using an embarrassingly detailed spreadsheet. Column A was year, column B was hypothetical XRP price under Changelly's guide path. Column C was portfolio value if I never sell at a single crumb of it. Column D was value if I peel off 10% at every kind of doubling, and do you want to know the spoiler? Well, the gradual trim plan cushions crashes and buys you at least nice toys much sooner. But the do nothing plan, if price delivers that is, still ends up miles ahead by 2030. Bigger risk, of course, bigger theoretical cookies. So before I kind of catapult deeper down this rabbit hole, let me address the giant glowing disclaimer elephant in the room. And this might shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Now, I'm glad that we cleared that up. Let's get back to the regulatory scheduled suspense. Earlier, I promised you a contradiction, so here it is. I adore the idea of handcuffing my sell button until 2030. Yet last week, I filmed a segment preaching disciplined profit-taking. Hypocrisy, right? Not exactly. Different assets, different stories. Some coins are sprinting hamsters. XRP, at least in Traveler's Gospel here, is a marathon tortoise wearing a jetpack that only ignites when regulators stop bickering and institutions need global liquidity at the speed of caffeine, at least a caffeine shot. So let's talk psychology then for a second, because every chart that you see is a mirror reflecting collective emotion, right? Greed, fear, boredom, FOMO. The hardest move in investing isn't buying a breakout or selling during, euphoria. It's actually doing nothing while the crowd screams. So imagine you're at a theme park roller coaster queue then, right? The line is 2 hours long, but the ride promises a view of the horizon that you can't get anywhere else. Midway through the wait, a smaller coaster offers immediate thrills. Most people bail and never see the high altitude sunrise. The traveler plan here is staying in that line, the phone battery dying, the snacks stash dwindling, because the view is allegedly life-changing. Now, by the way, if you need that camaraderie and on that kind of line, you need to hop into our free educational Discord server, right? The link, of course, is chilling in the description. We are going to swap, market stories. We're going to swap meme charts and the occasional dad joke to kind of keep spirits high during the sideways days. Now, let's zoom out to a macro lens, right? Ripple's legal saga, the central bank digital currency whispers, tokenized assets on enterprise blockchains. All of these threads weave into XRP's long game. So if regulation, or at least regulation kind of clarity finally lands, well, we could see decoupling from Bitcoin like Traveler's anonymous buddy predicts then, right? And once that kind of correlation snaps, the speedometer, it has no precedent, right? It could be thrilling, it could be terrifying, and maybe even probably both. And a friend this morning even asked me, but Nick, what if the world goes haywire? Wars, disasters, AI overlords, right? Don't you want like exit liquidity before the apocalypse? And it's funny enough that Edrino Farina already answered this. Now, he wouldn't sell at $10, not even if Skynet kind of called collect. Extreme? Maybe. Yet there is a lesson there, right? Conviction is a shield against market mood swings. Without conviction, every red candle feels like arson, right? With it, though, red candles look like discount coupons. Still, conviction alone doesn't pay the rent. And that is why Kraken Pro plugs that I plugged earlier, wasn't just affiliate housekeeping, right? Advanced order types on that platform. Again, the affiliate link supports the channel down below, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they let you actually set conditional sell years in advance. So you can pre-program partial exits at, let's say, $25, $50, $80, and then forget about it until your phone lights up like a Christmas tree. Traveler would potentially roll his eyes here, but hybrid plans, they exist for, well, stubborn realists. So let me kind of paint two quick scenarios then, right? Scenario A, it's July 24th at the point of recording this video. So let's just fast forward by 5 years and say it's July 24th, 2030, right? You ignore every pump, every correction, every tweet about XRP being dead, right? The price sits at maybe $45. You log in, your 10,000 XRP tokens, flash nearly $500,000. Now you treat yourself to a celebratory toast and ponder, how patience tested richer than, any kind of short-term flip. Scenario B, same data, but you sold half at $10 back in 2026 to pay for life stuff. Right? Price still ended at $45, but your stack is, well, smaller. So you're not crying, yet, a quiet voice does whisper in your head, what if? And that voice never kind of quits or never really leaves. Now, neither outcome is wrong, right? Both are life choices. Traveler simply wants fewer future whispers of the regret. But let me be completely honest about the storm clouds too, because blind optimism ages as well as warm sushi, right? Now the elephant, or maybe even the angry rhino in the XRP chat room, is the regulatory whiplash. Yes, Ripple scored decisive wins against the SEC, yet appeals lurk like kind of, sequel villains in a blockbuster franchise. A single unfavorable ruling could also freeze liquidity here. It could scare the institutions and turn our, serene 5-year meditation into, well, high-speed yoga. Now that doesn't hurt Traveler's stance. It just highlights why patience must share space with vigilance. So let's think of it like planning a cross-country road trip then, right? You pack snacks, you're going to queue the playlists, map gas stations out. But you're also going to stash a spare tire and accept that a thunderstorm might reroute you through a cornfield back roads, right? Doing nothing with XRP doesn't mean ignoring reality. It just means anchoring to a thesis that, while keeping, of course, a weather eye on the horizon. I set Google alerts for keywords like Ripple ODL adoption or central bank pilots and SEC remedy brief, right? So that breaking developments, they ping my phone without me obsessing over minute by minute charts. There's also opportunity cost, right? While XRP sits in cold storage, the wider crypto zoo may sprout, sleeper hits, right? Real world asset platforms, AI powered oracles, or whatever buzzword factory that 2027 produces. Now, you'll sacrifice immediate upside elsewhere to chase the outsized end game here. So it's a classic kind of bar bet, right? Would you prefer $50 now or a 1 in 10 shot at $5,000 next month? Mathematically, or mathematical kind of rational minds, they differ here, right? Emotionally, delayed gratification still wins Nobel Prizes in wealth compounding. And hey, right, I haven't even talked about lifestyle engineering, right? Imagine budgeting with a 2030 mental deadline. It forces discipline. You might skip that impulsive upgrade to the latest gadget, knowing that the future XRP fund could buy the deluxe version 10 times later, right? It kind of shifts thinking from weekly charts to generational wealth arcs, right? That frame alone has, shaved unhealthy stress off of my mornings. Okay, so one last observation then, right? The phrase "do nothing" is, decisively paradoxical, right? It's an action plan masquerading as laziness. It suggests calm, yet it demands ironclad nerves. And I'm staring, or at least maybe even starting to think, that Traveler's tweet is less a price forecast and more a psychological kind of limitless kind of test. Can you resist the casino's neon lights long enough to actually let time be your leverage? Now, we're kind of still gliding towards the runway here. So let's kind of breathe and recap through the rearview mirror, right? Doing nothing is actually harder than doing something, because sometimes the wealth gap hides, between the frantic clicks and the strategic kind of stillness. So if XRP is the freight train that Traveler believes it is, well, the ticket price is patience printed in bold. And so where does that really leave us today? Right, I'm keeping my bag kind of zipped here, calendar kind of marked, July 31st, 2030, for the next kind of serious evaluation. And I'm going to report back every quarter so that you can watch me squirm. Now, if you want, champions in the long road, well, remember, right, our Discord is buzzing 24/7 with binary kind of banter and zero spam. So you can hop in and test the thesis. And if you're kind of setting your own long-term orders, check out Kraken Pro through that affiliate link down below. Right, their advanced tools do make time travel with limit orders surprisingly painless. And yes, your click does throw a few pennies into the channel's tip jar. Okay, so here's the quiet kind of takeaway then. Sometimes the biggest action in crypto is the courageous act of stalling. Maybe Traveler is a prophet here, or maybe he's just really good at the suspense. Either way, the next 5 years will tell. So for now, you can hit that subscribe button so you can get a front row seat to that story unfolding. And if you want to check out what's going on most recently, you're going to check out that video that's queuing up on the screen right now. And I'll see you over there.